أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Inshallah everyone's doing well in the holy month of Ramadan. It's week 2 now. It's gone really fast. Like, I haven't felt it, to be honest. Inshallah we're all enjoying fasting. Hopefully it's easier with COVID, to be honest, because of quarantine. We all have to stay indoors, we're all with our families. So inshallah we can always find the positives even in this hard time. And inshallah not much longer to go in terms of COVID. There is hopeful news that Australia may be easing the restrictions, so inshallah. But everyone's been doing inshallah great, and hopefully we've all used this time really wisely, and we've still continued to our amal and getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we've said every single lecture, we will start with Dua al-Faraj, so we can have the presence and the blessing of the Imam of our time, Ajjallahu ta'ala Farajahu al-Sharif, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. So if you can all read with me today, that'd be awesome. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So continue on from last week. Last week we started the topic of hanging out with the right people or the right crowd. It was a very big topic, so we split up into two halves. The first half was introducing you to the concept and talking about the first thing, which was, if I remember correctly, was choosing who can be in our inner circle and choosing our inner circle carefully. And we discussed how we start off with our family and then move on in life, and we can take them with us or we can choose to leave them, and about our new inner circle that we were creating with our new families. So that was the first concept. Today we're going to start off with the second of the four concepts, which was putting barriers between you and other people. And we'll show you why this is a really important concept. So the thing is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already has made it, helped us with this, because a lot of the time we may find it hard to put barriers between us and other people. It may seem sort of like mean or harsh, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually has really helped us with that. And His help actually shows how important this step is. And the help we're talking about is the hijab. So the hijab, many people today see it as a bad thing. They see it negatively. They go, oh, hijab promotes inequality in Islam and things like that. And equality between the genders, it oppresses women. That's not true. And inshallah today we'll show you why that's not true. And a lot of the people, they just think of it as something that oppresses women, and they only see the physical hijab. But what people don't realize is there are actually two different types of hijab. There is a primary hijab and a secondary hijab. So the primary hijab is pretty much how we perceive the world around us and how we have that protection from so it's our in relation to us with the world. Sorry, I started there. Relation to us with the world. So this, we can usually see this and see everything around us with our five senses and things like that. And we also have an impact on the world by our ability to write on things. So all that is pretty much how we are able to, impact the world. The problem here is we have to have some sort of control over us, because if we don't have any control, our animalistic soul can go wild with these things, and we can just do harmful stuff. So we have the primary hijab to be able to help our divine intellectual soul rein our animalistic soul in and be able to contain ourselves and our desires. So it pretty much helps us purify our perspective of the world around us. So that's the primary hijab. That's the one we don't really focus on. A lot of time people just focus on the secondary hijab, which is because it's more out like a material sort of thing. It's an outward sort of appearance thing. And what it is, it's a thing we use to help protect us from people who haven't fully manifested their primary hijab. We can't expect non-Muslims to have full control over their primary hijab. They wouldn't think to control their desires. So obviously, we need protection from that. It's great that we learn how to control our own desires and have the primary hijab, but it's of no benefit if we are just exposing ourselves to people who haven't controlled that. So what we need is the secondary hijab for protection. Alright, so hopefully that can help clarify differences between the two. So we want to talk about how the primary hijab can help us in putting up barriers. So first of all, I reckon what we can discuss is how the primary hijab, it helps us control the 5 senses, but also something else, and it's communication. And a lot of the time we don't really see communication as like a extra thing, but it is important because it's how we interact with the material world around us. So I reckon what we should do is we'll discuss how the primary hijab can impact us in each of the different senses and then communication. So we'll start off with vision. Well, there's a really obvious part of the hijab of vision, and it's the stuff we're told about, lowering our gaze, and that's not to look at things that are haram. So let's try thinking about it not in like just the physical sense, but what are we actually doing when we're lowering our gaze? What we're doing is we're lowering our gaze out of respect. We're putting someone up in front of ourselves. By lowering your head to someone, it's always seen as a sign of respect. But in this instance, it's more about humbling ourselves and our own egos. Because a lot of the time, it's really easy to see yourself above everyone else, to look down at others. But instead here, we're putting ourselves down in front of everyone else. And it's a really good strategy to help rein ourselves in. Yep. However, sometimes it is important to look down at others, but not in the negative sense that we all know of. But it's when we're helping someone up. It's important to see them. If someone's yelling down, if someone's like below you, like in a hill, and they need help climbing the hill, and you just choose not to look down, that's not going to help the person, is it? Because you can't help them, you're not going to see that they need help. So obviously, that's when you would look down and help them up. Another person that you would not have to lower your gaze at is one of your awliya, the people that are your wali, because you need to be honest and true with them, and like be able to look at them eye to eye, so they can give you honest feedback. So that's why, and so they can help one another. So that's why you wouldn't necessarily lower your gaze with one of your ways. But then there's the more obvious sort of application of lowering your gaze, and that's to not look at haram stuff. And it's really easy to just blanket this term. Okay, great, I'm not going to look at haram stuff. Awesome. But it's a bit more complex than that, because it's also involves things like kissing scenes, which are becoming way more common these days, both in cartoons and in movies. And a lot of the time we just downplay, oh, it's just a movie, it's acting, it's okay. But it's not really okay. Remember what we said in one of our lectures previously. Make every small thing as big as possible. Make all your bad sins huge. We have to see this as a big deal and lower our gaze even from these bits. Whether it is we shut the TV at those scenes, not look at those things at all, or have a mechanism to skip forward those bits. But it's also things with themes that are more adult-like, that are haram. Like things like Game of Thrones. People always, because it was so popular, they'd watch it. But it has a lot of bad stuff. So even just things with those themes, we try avoiding them. Another thing we could do is avoid places with these haram things that are rife with haram things. So like parties, for example. Don't go to parties because you'll be exposed to the haram. Whether you are going to the party for the intention of doing the haram or not, you'll be exposed to it, and so that's a risk factor. So this is all talking about how we can lower our gaze. But why are we lowering our gaze to begin with? It's because all these things negatively can impact our hereafter form. If you remember from lecture 2, the second lecture, we talked about how our hereafter form is formed by our actions, and how all these different things can eventually make up how we look like. So if our actions or the things we see or let enter us and affect us are bad, then our hereafter form will be awful. But if what we the actions and the things that we let impact us are good, then we'll look beautiful. Alright, so that was just telling you a bit of why we need to control, like have a primary hijab. It's to be able to make a beautiful hair after form and also control our animalistic soul so we don't go astray off the Sirat al-Mustaqim. Alright, number 2, hearing. So, similarly to our vision, we're trying to avoid things that are going to make impact our hair after form. So things that we hear that are bad. The question should be posed here: what things can we hear that are possibly bad that we need to cover ourselves from and protect ourselves from? Well, music's one of them. Like, you know, the music that's halal and things like that. But another one is bad language and swearing. It's really common, especially in Australia, because they see it as part of their culture to swear actively. So it's really hard for us to always shut it off, but we should always try to avoid hearing it as much as possible. Another one's backbiting, and backbiting is a really big one, because it's like present not only in the West, like in non-Muslim people, but Muslim friends as well. So we have to really make sure we control that. But how can we control these things? These are things that other people are doing, not us. So that the way to do that is to place standards. That's the easiest thing to do, to place standards in your life. And so when people interact with you, you have those standards, and if they break them, you tell them actively. To make this, like, give an example of how this may look like, many families have like specific rules. You may be one of these families. Rules like you can never go to parties no matter what. Muslim, non-Muslim, you can't go to parties. Or you can't go over for sleepovers. Or you can't swear. These rules are really good because they ground the child and they help them not fall into these harams of sight and hearing. So let's try it when we have our own families. Let's set up these ground rules. Let's set up standards so our kids adopt these standards and they will avoid haram as much as possible. So that's the best way to go about that. But you can also set standards for yourself. Not only for others, set it with yourself and make sure others comply by these standards. Just tell them that I have these, and they'll respect that. Trust me, they won't. Maybe they might think you're weird, great, but who cares what they think? It'll really benefit in the long run. Next up's feeling. So feeling's really an obvious one in Islam. We can really see it happening. We're not allowed to touch the opposite gender, so no contact with girls for us guys, but also no inappropriate sort of touching, just in general. And why that's the case is because the shaitan can really influence us. He can make us like imagine bad stuff too with that. So what we can do is just shut it off from the get-go. To begin with, we have these barriers so that we don't fall into that haram. Next up are smell and taste. The thing is, because these two are so interconnected, and by interconnected, I'm not only just talking about their function and stuff, they're literally connected in the human body. They share the same canal. But they're so connected, we can't really separate the impact they have on us. Because let's be honest, how can we smell something haram if it's not food, or something that we're consuming by taste? And so they're really super connected. Usually they both relate to food. And if you remember from lecture 2, in lecture 2 we really clarified how what we eat does make up what we are eventually. So, if we eat haram, we can literally become the haram, just like this photo shows. So we have to remember to always, be careful what we eat. Don't let things that may look good that are haram sway us to eat haram food, and let's hopefully not make it become part of us. By the way, this isn't limited to foods. It also can be drugs, for example. Things that are haram that we can consume that can have an impact on us. We should always, try putting that primary hijab involves not consuming drugs and things like that, as well as food. Finally, communication. That's the last one. It's the new one sort of for today. But if you remember from lecture 1, we said we're all pens and we're all papers, so we can have an impact on other people. And that's what communication is. It's interacting with others and having an impact on them. So what we have to make sure that the actions we have a positive effect. Not necessarily in terms of appearance, but reality. Because sometimes things can appear great, but in reality they're not. So we always have to, get rid of that illusion that shaitan makes and look at the reality of something. For example, backbiting. At the time it may seem nice, but we're told that backbiting is reality. It's as if you're eating the flesh of your brother or sister. Like, it's really bad. Like, the reality of it is something terrible that's akin to this. If not, it is this itself. So therefore, be careful of that. Another thing could be backstabbing your friends. Literally stabbing them in their back. Like, these things are like, we always say them, like, but we don't really take action to them. Another thing is just the way we talk to people. Sometimes we can make people feel so bad about themselves, or like forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. If like we keep complaining and they realize they begin to complain, people can fall into depression. And why that's a bad thing? Why this depression is a bad thing? Because they begin to forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, and so they limit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this capacity, which is completely bad. Alternatively, revenge. We sometimes sugarcoat revenge for the sake of justice, but revenge is never good. Revenge always fuels anger, and it's not fueled by wisdom at all. And so what it can do, it's just feeding our ego and our desires, and so giving more control to our animalistic soul. Rage and anger are really a good way to gauge whether we're giving our animalistic soul too much control or not. So that's pretty much the things we're talking about today. Luqman had a saying that's very famous from him, and he says, Ya bunay, when he's talking to his son, In kunta za'amta anna al-kalama min fidda, fa'inna as-sukuta min dhahab. So if speech is made of silver, silence is made from gold. What we can learn from here is, let's try not saying things just arbitrarily. Things that we shouldn't be saying or really have no point and don't have any benefit, we should avoid saying, because let's be honest, they may have a harm that we can't see. So that was all of this discussion was the primary hijab. Let's move on to the secondary hijab. So in the Quran, in Surah An-Nur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really clarifies what we mean by secondary hijab. He says for the guys, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ ذَلِكَ أَزْكَى لَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَصْنَعُونَ. And then for females, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخَمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. English translation, you can find it anywhere. But pretty much what it's saying is there is some difference between what girls and boys have to do. It's quite a nice clarification of exactly what the secondary hijab is. So for females, it's to cover everything except the face and hands when you're with non-mahrams. And for boys, it's to cover anywhere from the belly button to the knees. A lot of the time, we don't really think about what the boy hijab is, but it's recommended that that's what we cover at all times. Sometimes we forget this and we let loose, all those people that don't wear a shirt and stuff. But remember that our hijab is this. So there is something that, there is a limitation that we should see ourselves with. It's not just our sisters that have these limitations on what they wear. The question here is, a lot of the people ask, why is it different? Why is it that why don't both men and women have to wear the scarf, the headscarf? The answer to your question is biology. Biology is the answer. Let's look at the animal kingdom, because it can really help explain to us the difference. In the animal kingdom, we see that males and females, they look different. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made males and females look very different. Even the spider. And the difference is quite drastic. It's not just something simple. What's the divine wisdom behind this? What's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom that made females and males so different? Well, let's look back at the plant itself. If you remember, the purpose of the plant is just to grow and reproduce. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually made a plant both a male and a female at the same time. It has both male organs and female organs. But the thing is, if you look at how plants interact, a lot of the time plants would rather have other plants pollinate them than self-pollinate. Why is that? Well, science tells us that if you continuously self-pollinate or interbreed, you actually lose genetic diversity. And that's problematic because it makes you more susceptible to disease and makes you unable to adapt to changes in the environment. So it's actually negative to continuously self-pollinate. Plants even recognize this. But plants, since they have such a basic and primitive purpose, which is just to grow, reproduce, and sustain us, they can have this function because to sustain a continuous growth, they may have to resort to self-pollination. But since animals and humans have a greater purpose, we have this greater level of complexity that we're not given this option of self-pollination. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the system of males and females as separates so that we can continuously have this genetic diversity and continue to make ourselves stronger over generations. So, now let's look at what we actually look in, so now we've said that there's a difference between males and females. What is it that we seek in a partner, for example? A lot of people try seeing only the physical appearance of their partner. They go for who's beautiful, right? Others, seek a partner who's strong and who can help them and protect them. A lot of people look for someone who's intelligent, smart, cunning. And others just look for money and power. And if you look at this, all of these things are quite desire-based, or primitive-based. We can see animals can definitely go for this stuff. Animals usually choose based on this stuff, so they can protect their young. An animal that's cunning and intelligent can help avoid danger, things like that. But if you remember, in Islam, a relationship is much more than this desire and this worldly or material-based inclinations. In Islam, we said that our relationship is much more than that. It's something whereby the husband and wife complete each other's religion, and make each other stronger. Imam Sadiq gave us those criteria to look at when seeking a spouse. And so we should look at those. These factors are distractions from what we should really be looking for. And so these have to be removed. So it's really hard to say, but we have to look past that. Look past these physical sort of traits and look more for the traits that Imam Sadiq asked us to look at. So some people may say that the hijab is still unfair. Because what the hijab does, it's really, the secondary hijab is so based on the female. She has to cover everything except the face and the hands. And the male just has to cover from this to this. But the answer to that is, one, you're not looking at the full picture. There's a difference between the roles of males and females in Islam. And so the protection is a different way. The people that haven't perfected their primary hijab may be looking at these physical traits, which may encompass different areas of the body in terms of physical appearance and other things, or they may attack you in different ways, and so you need different protection. The second one is, a lot of the time we do overlook, as I said before, in terms of the male hijab, we overlook what the male hijab actually encompasses. It's not only that we don't see that it's from the belly button to the knees, but we forget that males can't wear gold. It's haram for males to wear gold, especially in ibadah times. Why is that the case? Why is it that females are allowed to? It seems unfair, right? The argument can go both ways. Same thing with silk. Same thing with silk. Boys are not allowed to wear anything with silk. And silk is so soft and amazing to touch, but I'm not allowed to wear it. So there is a divine wisdom behind this. And it's because the way our animalistic soul works is different. It's different, and therefore we need a different level of protection. So now that we've discussed the secondary hijab, when do we have to have it? When does it apply? When should we always have it? I've mentioned before that we don't have to have it with the people that are mahram to us, like our families and things like that. And it's because usually that's a safe environment. But it's when we're around people who haven't protected their primary hijab. And so it's when we're in the open. So whether we're at school or whether we're at work, to protect ourselves. Or whether we're just with our friends in general, to protect ourselves from people who don't have a perfected primary hijab, we need to activate the secondary hijab, the secondary barrier, And so that's what we mean by putting barriers between us and others. It's not literally to isolate ourselves. It's to have a level of protection so that we help them from their own desires. Help them from not falling into haram, but also to protect us. And remember, this is just secondary hijab. Primary hijab is to make sure we don't do the attacks. So now the question here is, we talked about how we have to stop our colleagues from coming too close, or our friends and stuff like that. But it's also to stop them from entering our inner circle. If you remember from last lecture, we talked about how it was really important to selectively choose who's in our inner circle. Some people may try to forcibly put themselves into your inner circle, and the hijab sort of blocks that. It acts as a barrier like that. But the question here is, what if these people see us in their inner circle? And that's when we get to number 3. Point number 3. It's how to write on people without being influenced. The question we should really ask is, should we actually spend time with people that aren't our awliya? Or these people that, like, aren't necessarily, good for our Islam, for example? Is it even a good thing to do these, to spend time with these people? Well, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said to Abu Dhar, "Kun ala umrik, ashahha minka ala dirham wa dinarik." So what that translates to, be stingier on your time than your dollars and cents. So we have to be super stingy about this stuff. So obviously we shouldn't be wasting it at all, right? So should we even spend any time other than worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or studying Islamically and trying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Should we spend any other time? Well, theoretically, if we get to a point where we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything, that theoretically would encompass us getting close to Him all the time. But before we reach that level, the answer is not necessarily. Even at that level, it shouldn't all be purely based on that. We shouldn't spend 24/7 on the ibadah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. So we should, told us to do that specific ibadah that we mentioned in lecture 1. Imam Khalid actually really beautifully highlights it. I'm not going to read the full hadith to you guys, but the general gist is he splits our time up into 4 sections. He says the first one is for our calls to Allah, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether that's reading Quran, praying, adiyah. A quarter of our time should be spent towards that. Another quarter should be to make our living. So whether that's working or before, when we're young, like that's school or uni, because that's building up to our livelihood. A quarter of our time should be spending time with our weddis, so we can learn about our faults and dedicate it to that internal building of ourselves. And the last time is to pleasure ourselves in any of the halal things. So it's time to spend for ourselves. So I'm going to give these to you guys diagrammatically in this clock. So a quarter of the time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a quarter of the time to make our living, a quarter of the time with our awliya, and a quarter of the time to do what we like. By the way, the 4th one is the most important one, because without it, we won't have motivation to do the other ones. In fact, what we should eventually aspire to do is encompass all those other things into the time of what we like. If we make our job something we enjoy, because we realize its effect, then we can make it in that yellow segment too. Time with our awliya, we can have fun with our awliya, right? We can play games with them, or even just discussion. Talking with your awliya is fun. Same thing with ibadah. We can have that love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make it into something fun that we enjoy doing. So that's what we should do, because only by having this downtime, this time to relax, can we have the motivation to do the important work. Note that, time to make our living is a quarter of our time, but a lot of time these days it takes up a lot more of our time. So that maybe cuts some of the time to do what we like. So let's really enjoy it, or else we're gonna just have really hard lives. Okay. So now moving on. The question should be, what portion of our time should be given to those people that aren't our awliya? Should we give any portion of our time? And Imam Khalid's diagrammatic representation really helps us out. We can give them half of our time actually, which sounds like a lot, but we can. The first is that time when we make our living. We'll definitely interact with the people, our co-workers, or our friends at school. So that time is definitely a time where we can definitely interact with these people. But what we should be careful of is extending that time to outside of that time frame, so outside that quarter. So we shouldn't purposely try meeting these people outside of school, purposely going to parks or theme parks or each other's houses just for the sake of spending time with them, because that would go beyond our time limit. But if you remember, I said half, not just a quarter. And the answer to that is, you'll see. I'll tell you soon. Just before we get to that, Democritus actually has a really nice saying. He says that kinship does not make friends, but common interests make friends. So once these people that you spend time with begin to have common interests that are similar to your common interests, they can enter your fourth quarter, that one where you're having fun. Because when you can have fun with people, right? And so let's say if you like soccer and these people like soccer as well, your friends from school like soccer as well, you can spend time with them in that quarter together. They like video games, same thing. So what we're saying here is what we can, reading, sorry, there's another one. Sorry, I always forget reading. Maybe because it's not one of the things I like. Or even just going on like, appreciating nature. You can really do that with a lot of other people. And we said appreciating nature is actually a form of dhikr. So theoretically, just by doing these things with people, you can get benefits. There are benefits to it. What's interesting is once you spend a lot of time with someone, eventually, and once you add them to that number 4 section, what we can actually do is usually they can begin to see you as their wali, which is a really important step because it means they begin to open up to you and they begin to remove those barriers that they had previously. So once you become their wali, it's really a important and fundamental factor because they begin to open up to you more. But that being said, you should definitely not completely open up to them. What you should do is you should definitely remove some of those protective layers. And what we mean by that is why you should remove some of the protection when that person opens up to you is because you can't get that full level of compassion and love that you have that you can see with a best friend, that you have with other people. There is always that limitation when we have our protective hijab and barriers. And by that I'm not saying take off your hijab for the people that you see as your awliya. No. What we mean by protective layers is just you can loosen up a bit more. You can give them a bit more of your time. Why that is because we can eventually draw them in to the path of good. If they see you as a wali, they look up to you. And so they can eventually convert to Islam and see the path of truth. So to have that full level of compassion and love, we definitely need to remove some barriers and some layers. Another one is so we can listen to them and advise them. We can't have that listening aspect if we don't go down to their level, And so that's another layer that we can remove. Another one is to share the sharing of ideas and discussion with them, because that's important to help them generate ideas. But that also requires you to go down and not to block everything they say, but appreciate it as well. The problem is, what we're saying here is don't put down all your defenses, because if you do that, you'll be letting them right on you, and that can be problematic because it can actually lead you astray. For example, don't apply everything they say to yourself. If they, let's say, eat pork, don't apply that to yourself and eat pork as well. So make sure that you're inscribing on them without letting them inscribe on you. Another thing is, don't spend too much time with them. So don't exceed your limit. You have that half is fine. Don't let them eat into your wali time, because they're not your wali yet. And lastly, don't let them change the ideas that you have. Don't let them influence your Islamic concepts. If they say that alcohol is fun, it's nice, it makes you feel great, don't let that change the way you view your haram and halals. So that's really important. But the thing is, once you let those barriers down and slowly start interacting them with more, eventually they can actually develop and become better people, and eventually become someone who's qualified to be your wali. That's a really important thing. By the way, when I say all this stuff before, I don't want to frame it as if this is how we treat people that are Westerners. But it's also how we treat people who aren't awliya. So it can be Muslim friends that haven't reached that level of awliya. Make sure that we don't, the people that we don't see as awliya shouldn't take up all that time. An important point is, we should never do this process alone. Always when you're with this other person that's not a wali, who opens up to you, always have one of your awliya just as a backup to you. Discuss with them what you went through in that day, what questions did they ask you and things like that. Because you need that barrier, you need that support. We're always flawed. And a lot of time if we try doing this solo, we may be influenced and go down the wrong path. So you always have to have that backup. So you have to have one of your awliya so that they can guide you and help you. Let's say if you're that person that sees you as a wali, ask you a difficult question that you can't understand or don't know how to answer. You definitely just don't go, oh, don't worry about it. You go ask your wali, and they may have the answer. Then you can go tell that new person. So you have to have that support network. So what we're trying to tell you here is, you know, a lot of the time we close off from our parents. We don't tell them, you know, what's happening at school and things like that. But our parents are awliya in our early stages before bulugh, and we can make them our awliya when we're baligh. But we can definitely have them as trusted people that we can ask advice from, because they have experience. Our awliya are there to tell us what we're doing, if it's right or if it's wrong. Alright, next. Next up, what we're going to say, oh, sorry. I'm going to give more justification why we have to have this backup person. The Prophet, peace be upon him, says, Al-mu'minu mir'atu akhi al-mu'min. So, the mu'min is a mirror of his brothers and sisters. The question here is, what's the purpose of a mirror? It's to help us see ourselves. But sometimes we can't see everything just by looking at a mirror. You can't see your back. So you obviously would need something else. Usually it's another mirror, for example. If you have another mirror, you can actually use that mirror to see your back. But do you know what's easier than all that? Trying to get the exact angles? Just get someone else to tell you what's going on at the back of you. And that's what we need. We can have that wali that can tell you the things that you can't see about yourself, that they can. Because they'll have a different perspective about that. So just don't be afraid, to have someone who is ready to judge you. Being judged is a good thing. We always think it's a negative, but it's not. Because they can really help show us not only our faults, but the weaknesses in our defense, so that we can make them stronger, so that we're not as exposed when we go into the outside world. And lastly, something that's really scary and we should think about. We should really be careful about who we associate ourselves with, who we always spend our time with. Because it's been told by Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, he says that لا تحكموا على رجل بشيء حتى تنظروا من يصاحب فإنما يعرف الرجل بأشكاله وأقرانه وينسب إلى أصحابه وأقدانه. So it's pretty much, you don't judge someone by anything till you see who he hangs out with. For a person is defined by his persona and the people around him, and they are ascribed to be his friends and the people he has relationships with. So if we hang out with the people that are bad, we could be judged as people that are bad, even Yawm al-Qiyamah. And we see so many times in the Quran where so many ayat, I can't remember any off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure in Surah the one after An'am, I can't remember which surah it is, sorry. But it does have that whole dialogue where someone goes, I took the wrong awliya, I have these people that I thought were my awliya, but they were bad, and they've dragged me to bad as well. And surely you blame them, not only us, but the reality is we all get blamed together. So we have to really be careful who we hang out with, and that the people that we hang out with have the same values as us, people that we would love to be, represented by. Which brings us into the last bit, establishing a group with the same goal. Archimedes had one of his inventions was really a clever thing that really helps exemplify this concept. It's his mirrors, and it happened when there was a siege of I can't say the place. It's Syracuse. I always struggle with the city name. But what happened was there was a siege, and there were all these ships attacking it's like a port area. And so what he did was he used mirrors to take them down. And you think, how can one mirror take down a ship? And all the people at the time would make fun of him, what do you want to do? But what he did was he used all these different mirrors, a huge array, to focus the light and eventually burn the ships. And so what we can see from this, what this can show us, is that with a lot of different things, with a lot of different vessels, we can make a combined vessel stronger. So with a lot of things that support something, we can get a stronger outcome. And that's the role of a community in Islam. In Islam, a community is something that reflects our attributes, just like a mirror reflects, right? But it's something that makes us stronger. And we can't reach some levels without this community approach. And as we said in the last lecture, we can't jump high in the trampoline without others who can jump in synchrony with us. And that's why we have such a community orientation in Islam. The problem is, a lot of the time in today's society, or in today's modern life, we attribute names to groups. And we try advertising our groups, especially in social media, you can see it. Subscribe to my channel and stuff like that, and please follow, likes, etc., etc. And that's made us so focused on ourselves and our internal sort of groups. Instead of helping support a general idea, we're supporting our take on that idea, which can be problematic because we lose the purpose of why we're having these community-based groups. What we're trying to do is work together to overcome ourselves and get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what this does is just makes us more focused on ourselves, which isn't great. So it limits the capacity for us to have the full benefit of these community things and our potential for us to have others join our groups or having multiple groups joining together. Because, so the solution to this is really to start small. We should definitely start our groups, with one or two people that share our same goal. Eventually we can expand this to our family, because usually our family is that safe net that has the same sort of goals as us. But once we establish a strong foundation, only then can we start expanding and expanding. So make sure you've connected everything, like you made sure that you and your family have a strong connection, that you guys have the same goals, and then we'll expand to our community. Slowly growing and growing and growing. So make sure you don't have a limitation. So like as in, don't say, oh, my group this, my group that. Be open to add-ons, but make sure you start small and then grow, so your capacity grows as well. And until inshallah one day, when we can have a global community, an entire global community, and that will only happen in the time So now let's move on to, this is the final thing for today's lecture. It's what are the steps of actually creating such a group? Well, the first thing is telling that person, remember we said start small, so telling that person themselves that you want them to be in your group. The Prophet, peace be upon him, actually says, إِذَا أَحَبَّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَخَاهُ فَلْيُخْبِرْهُ يَقِلْ إِنِّي أَحُبُّكَ فِي اللَّهِ إِنِّي أَوَدُّكَ فِي اللَّهِ. Actually tell this person. Why that's important is because it tells them that you're ready to take the step of establishing a group with them, having that shared goal and working and striving together with them on Sirat al-Mustaqim. So, just in this hadith, we'll clarify the difference between hub and wid, because two words the Prophet says, tell them that you have hub and wid to them. So, hub and wid, what's the difference? Hub, it can more like be described as like the feeling of love, but wid is like, taking action, or like the action towards that love. And so, hub is actually like a prerequisite sort of to love. We've said that a lot in these lectures, how we have like a basic term and then application, how one is a prerequisite to the other. And it's the system Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. He gives us a taster of something that helps us build on to an applied action of something. And so that's the difference between hub and wid. And so why it's important to show that to the person that we're going on this journey with, that we have both of these things, is because we're not only showing them that we have this extrinsic love, oh yeah, I love you, you're awesome, I need you when I'm in downtime, but you show them that you're dedicated. You're willing to take that step further with them. Step 2 is to keep in touch. It's really important to keep in touch with these people, because the more you spend time with them, because remember we have that time allocated for the people that are our awliya. Why that time is important? Because it's a time where we can see our faults, help get stronger, work towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also just being in their presence is important, because if you remember the things that we talked about, proximity, the factors of proximity, one of them is how much time we spend with them and how close we are to them. So it's really important to stay in touch with these people so we have that continued strong connection with our awliya. Unfortunately with COVID, it's hard, really hard. So even staying in contact over the phone, or Zoom, or Skype, or whatever you're using, social media, guess what? It has a benefit. We can see it now. Thank you, COVID, for showing us that social media has a benefit. It has a benefit for us to keep in touch with our awliya. So let's make sure we do that on a regular basis. Why it's important is because we have to have them continuously with us on our journey. So in case we fall off the right path, we can have each other keeping each other on that right path. So in summary of all the hanging out with the right crowd lectures, both 1 and 2, what we've said is we should pick people who will help us reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should dedicate ourselves to these people. We should tell them what you want them to do and what you wish from them. Remember we said, tell your parents, give them those duties, responsibilities. contact them frequently and keep account of your goals together, so you guys can strive for the same goals. Like, keep tabs. Like, make sure, have you done this yet? Have you read Juz' 13? I'm up to Juz' 29. Oh, really? Make it competitive, because only then can you motivate yourself to do these things. Place the appropriate barriers between you and others. Make sure that's a really important step, so that not only for your sake, but for their sake as well. A lot of the time we think it's just for us, but the hijab's not a selfish thing. It's to help them not do more wrong than they could be doing. Adore your hijab. Make it something precious, because really it is a gift that Allah SWT has given us. Don't feel like it's a limitation at all. And lastly, be beneficial to those who you consider as a friend. And don't be influenced by them, but influence them themselves, and hopefully they can become your wali one day. And finally, be stingy with your time. That's a big one. Let's be as stingy as possible, guys. Actually, fight for your time. So that's the end of the Hang Out with the Right Cloud lecture. Inshallah, you guys have gained the benefit. These 2 lectures have been really application heavy. So inshallah, you've absorbed it all. It's really hard to apply all the stuff, but we can see it really helps map out our journey in our life. Now we're up to the video segment. I'm actually gonna apologize for today's video. You guys may know the series. I definitely know it, but not like it. We may not like the series, so I apologize in advance. But remember, we said we can find the gems in everything, even the most childish things. So today we're looking at Barbie. Alright? Before anyone laughs, yeah, I know, Barbie. I said it. Especially for us guys. I know the girls won't find this as traumatizing, but us guys, we might find it quite traumatizing. But don't worry, we can find the fruits and the gems and everything. A bit of context about, there's not much context you need, it's a Barbie movie. But pretty much, main character, girl called Alina, she's a fairy. It's a whole fairy world, and there's an evil fairy, and she's trying to ruin spring or the world on them by destroying this flower. And so this hopefully will show you the benefit of having a community orientation around our lives, and how important it is to have people helping us. So hopefully this works. I'm not sure about sound. Please don't do what you did yesterday. Last week, sorry, that was really annoying. Nope. Alright, I'm just gonna have... Oh, there's a copy link button? Great, thank you so much. So in the slide? Go back on the slide. I'm having tech support here, which is awesome this time, not like last time. We're at 0 tech support. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so where is it again? Yeah. Yeah, so copy the link now. Thank you, Heidi. And yeah, inshallah, I should make this a lot faster than searching up. Whoopsies, my uni stuff. Control V. Oh, Control V. Nope, didn't work. Alright. Oh, great, I found the video, don't worry about it. So inshallah this works.
Did you really think I'd save your people? Watch as I destroy your precious first blush of spring. You never disappoint, do you, Elena? Did you really think one little fairy like you could defeat me?
I'll stop it there. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Okay. There are gems in this, okay? Like it may seem like, what was that? That was just like a love, like a power of friendship moment. But realistically, that's what we're talking about today. The power of friendship. The power awliya can actually have on us. What was the things we really wanted you to take out of that clip? There were two main points. The first one was it was really nice that whole representation, they visually showed us how all these mirrors can come into one point and make the individual stronger. So that's how important it is for us to have our community. And the community, it's not like we just it's not like you're just benefiting the community. A lot of the time we feel like when we work for the community, we feel like it's just we're benefiting the community and that we don't get anything out of it. But in reality, they're all putting their strength into us, and you're actually getting better by serving the community. Like Alina, she was protecting the whole world, but she was actually strengthened. She thought, she was the one that was protecting the entire world, protecting all these people, but they actually strengthened her in doing so. That's the importance of the community-based approach. The second point, which was why we chose this clip over so many other clips, which could have shown the exact same thing, is when Alina was being hit, she turns around. You saw all her friends from the beginning. They were all like, they looked like they were willing. They were concerned. They were willing to help out, but they weren't. Only when she asked them did they begin to help. Why that's important is that it reminds us how a lot of the time there are so many people in our lives that are on standby. They're waiting for us to just ask. All you have to do is ask. It's important to tell these people what you want them to do. Delegate the responsibilities so they can know how to help you. There are so many people, awliya, family, parents, they're willing to help you, but they don't know in which way you want them to help you, because that's the only way you can get the most benefit out of their help. Don't be afraid to ask. It's not bad to ask someone for help. In fact, it's super important. So we should be like, we should be like Alina and actually ask for help. Like, turn around, and as soon as she said, I need you, they instantly came into action. And so it's the importance of, humbling yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Then also realizing that there are people out there that are willing to help you and are just waiting for your instructions. Anyway, that's the end of today. Thank you so much for listening, and sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.